Hey everybody, Percy here. I wanted to give you some information. Check this out. If you go visit a foreign country that you're not used to, that speaks English, such as America, there are holidays there that may surprise you the way they are practiced in that country and what you know from your country. That's what we're going to talk about on today's episode of the Social English Podcast. We have another English Repair Shop episode. Stay tuned.
今日は英語修理店のエピソードです。英語を勉強している日本人が英語の間違いを正してくれないかと尋ねました。これを実際の会話英語で行ってみます。
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Social English Podcast. I am your host, Percy. And like I said before, today's podcast is an English Repair Shop episode. If you are just practicing English, you're interested in English, or even if you are advanced and have a high level of English, this episode is great for you. You're gonna love it. So, what are we talking about? Holidays. I stated before in an episode of the Social English Podcast that many holidays are practiced differently than you know. One of these holidays is Halloween. I have a person who is a student of the English language, and they asked me to fix their English, and I will do that today on the Social English Podcast so you can hear how the English is fixed and said correctly. This person wanted to talk about their trip to America during Halloween. So they went to America and had the experience of the Halloween season, especially the Halloween holiday on October 31st, where they saw trick-or-treating and scary Halloween costumes. They want to tell this story in English to their English-speaking friends, or just to express this in English. Now, before we start, I want you to remember that the English Repair Shop episodes will have 4 parts. In the first part, you will hear the wrong English from the Japanese student. Next, you will hear my corrected Social English version. This is a natural, conversational American English. Okay, so this is what you will hear in part 2. In part 3, you will get the tips and advice. I will tell you what I changed and why. And in the last part, part 4, I will give you the fast English version. And I'm laughing a little bit now because one episode, I can't remember which episode, but I did the entire episode and it went live and I forgot to do the real live English version. So I apologize for that episode. So I'll try to keep it, make sure I do them. Okay, so let's start. Let's get into it. This is the wrong English version from the Japanese learner of English. I have been so surprised to my first Halloween in America. I finded so many pumpkin, and my daughter was afraid of neighbors' authentic Halloween decorations, and she was almost cry. Here it is again, one more time. I have been so surprised to my first Halloween in America. I finded so many pumpkin, and my daughter was afraid of neighbors' authentic Halloween decorations, and she was almost cry. Okay. Maybe you heard some issues. Maybe you heard some mistakes. How would you fix those sentences? Well, let's move on to part 2. Here is my version, my corrected social English version. Let's start. My first Halloween in America was such a surprising experience. I saw so many pumpkins, you wouldn't believe how many pumpkins I saw. My daughter was so afraid of the neighbors' scary Halloween decorations that she almost cried. Okay, now I'm going to give you the correct version one more time. My first Halloween in America was such a surprising experience. I saw so many pumpkins. My daughter was so afraid of the neighbors' scary Halloween decorations that she almost cried. Here is a more social English version. My first Halloween in America was such a surprising experience. You wouldn't believe how many pumpkins I saw. My daughter was so afraid of the neighbors' scary Halloween decorations that she almost cried. Okay, so that is how you would say this in a more clear and expressive version of English. Also, you can understand the story you are telling someone. In English, it is clear what you are saying. So in part 3, let's look at some points. Just use was to explain that it happened in the past. Also, when you use the word Halloween in your story, we, as the listener, understand you are talking about the past. So, you don't need to use I have been so surprised. Okay? Next, the word authentic. Authentic. Here is how it used in the wrong English. Please listen. Neighbor's authentic Halloween decorations. Neighbor's authentic Halloween decorations. The word authentic doesn't clearly explain why your daughter almost cried. Why would your daughter almost cry? Authentic. Instead, use scary. Scary. Scary explains crying. Why she almost cried. The scary Halloween costumes. Authentic just doesn't work. Okay. So that is it for part number 3. Please focus on that. Now, let's go to part 4, the last part of today's episode. In part 4, I will say the words that are correct using social English and the sentences. So, the entire English passage here from the clear, correct social English standpoint. Okay, let's listen. I will say this again in normal speed. Normal, natural speed of English. Okay, so here is the normal, natural speed. My first Halloween in America was such a surprising experience. I saw so many pumpkins. My daughter was so afraid of the neighbor's scary Halloween decorations that she almost cried. Here it is again, but with the more expressive social English version. My first Halloween in America was such a surprising event. You wouldn't believe how many pumpkins I saw. My daughter was so afraid of the neighbor's Halloween decorations that she almost cried. Okay. Now, that is how you say it in the fast speed English version. Please listen to it again and practice yourself.
このショーを気に入っていただけたら5つ星のレビューをぜひお願いします。 コメントは英語か日本語でお書きいただければ喜んで読ませていただきます。realsocialenglish.com にアクセスしてぜひ無料でダウンロードしてください。ほとんどの日本人の英語を勉強している人がやってしまいがちな7つの間違いとその正しい言い方。また、毎日英語を上達させるのに役立つ資料もたくさんあります。Apple Podcast、Google Podcast、Stitcher、そして今はパンドラでもポッドキャストを購読いただけます。支援者になっていただけませんか？私たちがこのショーを作るための支援として$5の寄付をお願いできませんか？今後のエピソードで感謝の気持ちをお伝えします。また、そこでしか利用できない新しいコンテンツも入手できます。patreon.com/socialenglish からご参加ください。ソーシャルメディアで私たちのポッドキャストを友達にシェアしたり、Twitter、Facebook、Instagram のフォローをお願いします。
Okay, everyone. That is going to do it for today's episode of the Social English Podcast. I am so happy to be able to bring this podcast to you, and I'm so glad that you are able to listen to it. Please share this podcast with 5 friends to help spread this podcast. Please rate this podcast. Please, so that more people can see it. I'd like to thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace and love.
今日は楽しい時間をありがとうございました。ぜひ私たちのウェブサイト realsocialenglish.com を訪問して日本語訳と役立つ情報を手に入れてください。また次回お会いしましょう。バイバイ。See you next time. Bye bye.